Welcome back. Episode 83 of the Ground Up Podcast. The budget coming up, politics, and a house tour from Stu.
A budget filled with taxes rather than growth.
That's one way to start a relationship with a council, mate.
The whole thing is down to money, which equals greed and power.
Jack's already given a nickname for his child, and it's called Few Grand. Few Grand, come over here.
Lounge, which is lovely. The reason we bought the house really was the garden for the kids.
So I just went, all right, guys, stick up an England flag. So it was almost like a white Mayday flag.
Jack shared all these processes and systems on the network. And as he was skimming through on his phone chatting, I was like, there's my name. 60% margin.
16,500 millionaires the UK has lost this year.
It's so disappointing in the way that it's all going. The unelected civil servants who make all the decisions ahead of the politicians who are the puppeteers means that we're fighting a losing battle.
I actually asked a Labour politician, is the reason, and they said no comment. That speaks in volume.
Who are they really doing it for? Are they doing it to benefit the British people or these huge universal hedge funds who are going to come in and buy up all of our properties and then rent them back to us?
Ground up sound, ooh yeah, real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, deals, deals making money, baby.
Welcome back. Episode 83 of the Ground Up Podcast. Today we have Jack Jiggins, Stuart Wyeth in his new crib, in his new humble abode.
My new background. I've got a new background filter.
He does. It looks lovely. All the boxes. And myself, Ryan Beaumont. We also have Dorian Payne joining us shortly. And to be fair to him this time, he did say, guys, can we make it 7:30? But Stuart needed to do 7 because it's Hudson's birthday. So getting it out of the way quickly. And this episode's going to be a good one because we've got absolutely fuck all prepared. So we're just going to chinwag about the budget coming up, politics, and a house tour from Stu. So Stu, take us away, mate.
Yeah, man. I missed you guys. It's been a crazy few weeks. But yeah, no, I watched episode 81, so I'm glad that the best looking ones turned up early. Hey, Jack, me and Ryan sitting here having a good chinwag. Going, where are the better looking ones? Couldn't believe it, the cheeky. And then so it's just been mad. I've had no internet, 10 days of just carnage, packing like 150 boxes for one weekend, unloading them, and then trying to keep two kids calm and get everything on walls and stuff. But anyway, I was just going to quickly show. It's more to do with the network. I really had no internet until not last night, the night before. So it's been really hard to stay on top of everything, emails and stuff. But I'm just going to quickly show you this if it logs on.
Give us a tour. Yeah.
So this is the dining room and my office. It was going to become the playroom. It was all planned to be the playroom, but we couldn't get the sofa through this door. And perfectly, the old vendor left the desk because mine was built in. So ironically, that become the study. So that's where I'll be recording from for the next few months. This is the playroom, which we've made. Went to IKEA and got the unit. Just made it for the kids to put all their storage in. Hub's having some breakfast now. Right, bud. Kitchen. His little cake, look. And we dressed that this morning. And then we've got utility room and then the double garage out here. So we lost the last double garage on the last extension because we made it into the kitchen. So I'm definitely not going to be doing that again. Angie at the door. Thank you, love. Quickly squeeze past. And then we've got cupboard for coats. And then we've got the lounge, which is lovely. The reason we bought the house really was the garden for the kids. So it's just over an acre and it's pretty cool. Got a couple of ponds there. Got a little swimming pool in that blue building, which we're going to level and build a better one in the years to come. And then the garden's just that big tall tree, the Lion King tree, that marks half the garden, so it goes on a bit more. And there's little presents. Look, it's 2 today, bless him. The little England look fireplace. So all the bedrooms are down the other end. Just quickly whip you down. So it's 4 beds. It was a 3 bed when we bought it, but this used to be the dressing room for this room, and there was an old door here, so we sort of just block that in, which we've done that a few days ago. And now this is our master bedroom with a little ensuite and stuff. So yeah, good, really happy. Loads. I'm literally going to take the roof off and double the footprint, so it should be quite big with a nice big gallery landing here and staircase and stuff. But yeah, there we go, little tour.
Talk us through it. What you're doing with the garden? Because you're going to be
so we're going to I basically bought it thinking I was going to put a lake in the garden, because at the back it goes on for so much, it goes on so far. There's a big tall tree and that marks sort of half the garden, and then behind there's loads of holly and other tall trees. I'm going to sort of just fell as much as I can, so it's almost like a cool little park area for the kids to play. But then thinking on putting a lake in the garden with all the trees and the leaves over the last month or last few weeks, it's been carnage. There's thousands of leaves, so it might be a bit of a pain putting a lake there, but it still is the plan to do an outdoor swimming lake. And then there's a little swimming pool and outbuilding on the right, which we're going to knock down and hopefully get planning to build a proper one. But over the next sort of 5-10 years when the kids are older, even though they're both swimming quite a lot. And then, going to try and put a double garage on the front and take the roof off and go up and double the footprint. So we've bought the same size house as we used to own, but it's just got more potential to go out and go up. And,
All the like ceiling, the little old school ceiling cottage features and all that kind of the skirts, arcs. You'd ripping everything out, yeah?
When we bought it, it was like almost definitely rip it all out, start again, put our name on it. But we've sort of fell in love with the charm of it a little bit. There's some trees out the front which are coming out tomorrow, and they were going to do last Saturday. But there's quite as you drive in, the lane's quite tight, so we want to open that up and actually have a bit more space to get high frequency. There's people always coming and going in our house, whether it's the postman, the Amazon driver, staff, workers, cleaners, whoever, they're in and up at the drive. So the little lane's not going to work for us. So we're going to sort all that out first. I've got 100 laurels turning up on next Thursday, so we're going to plant all those down the side. I think the neighbours are going to be pissed off a bit because all these trees that are older, but then there's nothing nice there. There's a few birch trees, whatever they are, beech trees, but nothing else is worth keeping. So I'm just going to cut the lot out and start again.
Might be worth holding off planting the laurels until you get your application ready and pull them laurels going in as part of the B&G. Otherwise, when you submit the application to make the improvement for the B&G, you've already banged a load of laurels in.
Well, I need to do B&G for a planning app, for a household planning app. I don't think I will.
I did on mine.
Yeah, but yours is a new build. This is a conversion. This is a separate garage. It's not a separate dwelling. So I don't think B&G, and I'd rather keep the neighbours sweet and get the parish on board.
From biodiversity net gain, when your application goes in and you've removed a load of trees, you've removed them before the application goes in, so that's fine. But if you are chucking in a load of trees, you're kind of, because you have to have, I think, is it a 10% positive net gain on a personal property? Then you've got all these. Let's say you put in how many laurels? 20.
There's 100 laurels going.
100, so you need another 20. If you do have to then do B&G, whereas if you don't plant them yet, you're 80 over.
Yeah, no, but I'm also got to keep the neighbours sweet. Like I went and spoke to my neighbour opposite. They'll be felled before the next episode, so he won't be watching it anyway. Lovely guy over the road. I said to him, look, it looks quite scruffy out the front, and I really need a bigger access, so I'm gonna have to sort the garden out. He said, "Well, keep a few of the nice big trees and just go for the rest." I'm like, yeah, I'm not keeping a few of the nice big trees. They're all coming out. I'm going to lose the lot, and I'd rather crane in some nice trees that are positioned in the right location. This is effectively our forever home, so I want it to be right for us. I don't want to work around a few old bendy trees that look like they're going to fall over in the wind anyway. So it's all fun and games, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the plans done. I've used a fantastic survey company. They come over about 2 weeks ago called XP Surveys. They've done a full topographical of the garden and all the angles and slopes, which I'll be happy to share on here.
Profit did they
Minus
make on
the
you
interest.
this time, mate?
Well, he done me a very good deal this time too, and it's like a housewarming gift. Bless him.
What a nice
yeah,
guy.
yeah, and he gave me credit as well. I still
I'll
owe him
never
some
forget
money,
that. So funny that. So funny. Steve's like, "Is that my job? You made like 60%."
Can you believe it? We're on the network, right? Just for the listeners, Jack's sharing all these processes and systems on the network. So we're sitting on there. And he's brought up his list of his customers of 2024 or something. I was going through it, and as he was skimming through on his phone chatting, I was like, there's my name. 60% margin. And then the next one's down like 50%. I was like, he tells me he's fucking, pleading poverty and can't afford fuel to come out and see me, drop off a fucking styling. And he's making big bucks on me.
Mates rates, mate.
Yeah,
Mates rates.
In my defense, we did. I think we did. I don't even think we broke even on your other survey. So that was the Windsor survey, wasn't it? The Twickenham one. I think we did quite.
And then Windsor, you've done,
Yeah.
and then you've done this house now. But yeah, no, it's good. I'm looking forward to seeing the drawings. Hopefully, they'll come through next week, and then we'll get on with pre-app straight into the council. I went straight down to the local pub. So obviously, the guy opposite. We moved in, and where we were waiting so we were ready to go by like 12 o'clock, and the people living here, older couple, they built the house in 1984, 1985. There's a little brick outside. They've lived there since new, and they had so much shit everywhere. We turned up at they told us we'd be ready by 1:30. So Charlotte and I had an hour and a half, went down to our local pub, met the landlord and lady, said we're waiting for our keys. That was nice. So we had a good chat with them and some of the older folk down there having their Thursday afternoon lunch. And at the time we booked a Sunday lunch there, and just to come down there and say hello to some more locals. And then I ran into my neighbour on that Sunday when we moved in, and he said, "Oh yeah, the boys meet down the pub on a Monday and a Friday, 5 till 7." So I thought I'll make the effort and go down on the first Monday. Walked in there was 4 older guys in there, all lived in the village since year dot, and they're telling me all the stories of who lives where. And I got myself on the WhatsApp group straight away, and then come home. So we need to put an introduction WhatsApp together. So I pinged it around to all the neighbours. There's like 2 parts of the town, the little town we live in, little village, and yeah, it's good. They've all sort of said hello, and they're all very polite. But it's very much it feels like I'm living in Emmerdale a little bit. It's very much you never know if you never guess what he's done, and never guess what he's done. And yeah, I don't want to piss them all off in 2 weeks.
You learn all the stories, mate. There'll be one aggy neighbour at some point who's going to be like, "Oh, this Stuart," and he'll kick up a fuss, and he'll create a little cartel of people that come after you for your swimming pool, for your lake antics, all that kind of shit. Or not, or they all love you. That you never know.
Well, there's an ex-RAF pilot I've met who lives 45 seconds from the local pub, and he's quite well known. There's a guy who's born and bred who knows everyone, and he was the guy I was informed to sort of get on board with and sort of say hello to, and he'll do a load of introductions. There's a guy that's from Jersey who lives in a very big house in the village next door, very big in a small holding basically. And there's another guy who's moving over to South Wales because his daughter's just bought. She loves fit pigs or farms or something. He's moving over that way because he wants to be near the grandchildren.
She's
got
pigs.
like 50 acres or
loves
something.
pigs.
So yeah, some decent people. I mean, there's just nice stories. They're all customers, right? All investors.
When are you doing a housewarming party?
Probably in the spring, once we've got all the boxes unpacked. This room has become like the storage room because there's no internet. So I'm sort of finally, yesterday there was another 5 boxes on there, which I sort of thought I can't look like I'm living in a storage cupboard today. So yeah, we've got 4 or 5 more boxes to sort out. Got shelves to put up, get things everywhere. It's just carnage. And then you're trying to run a few businesses, stay on top of everything. But first world problems, right? We love it here. I can't wait to get it put up. In terms of keeping all some of the features, yeah, I think we all rip a lot of it out. But the charm of where it is quite cute. And it's a bungalow now, but we're going to turn it into a house. So.
Are you going to lift the ceiling height?
Yeah, I'm going to take these up to 2.7. It depends. So once the plans are done, I'll either take the whole thing up in brick. If the foundations look solid, and I was told when they built it, the foundations are ginormous, but I need to do a trial hole and check the foundations. But my plan would be to put a whole floor in it and then a roof on top, even if it's not usable, it's like loft plaster storage, just so we get the same footprint up again, because I can get like 6 bedrooms in this footprint with like 4 en suites. And then if we don't do that, or Charlotte wants to keep the charm of it, then I'll go up a metre on the perimeter and put a roof on it. And then I'll get the whole thing made out of an attic truss. So I'll take the perimeter walls up by a metre. So you gain the width still, even though some of the rooms are compromised with the slopes. And then I will design it around that, and it will just look a bit softer. But we're down the little hill. There's a little gradient from the main road down to the house, which is quite cute. You feel quite tucked away. But so even if going up 2, we're still going to be just one floor above road height. So there's loads of potential. I'm just looking forward to seeing the plans, and I'm waiting. I've got 2.5 weeks, I think it was, Jack. So I've got another half a week to go. Hopefully they're pushing on it.
I can follow up with the team today.
Find out for you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well,
just on the topic of neighbours, from a property investment and development perspective, I had a neighbour on. So basically, we bought a house. We're converting into an HMO. So it's a big single-story rear extension. Party wall agreements required. Blah 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 blah. And how do you manage those relationships? Because I had one side where. So what I did rather than doing party wall agreement is I typically sometimes speak to the neighbours and say, here's the plans, can you just sign them off and we'll get cracking, and we won't have to worry with party wall if it's not too hard touch. And then one of the neighbours called me and was just like, oh, I'm so upset. And I was like, why? And he was like, you just submitted a planning application to convert it to HMO and you didn't tell me. And I was like, well, I can't ring everyone. It's and it just ended up me having to just sort of just completely apologize, being like, sorry, I should have called you, because he couldn't see it from my side that we're busy and we don't have the time to ring everyone. And then we obviously then submitted the second application, which was sui generis. So I just called him and I said, look, just to give you a heads up, given the previous situation, we're submitting for a 7-bed. Just sort of, have a courtesy call you. And he was like, I really appreciate that. Thank you. But how do you guys when it comes from a property investment perspective? I know, Stu, you're obviously putting in the groundwork because you're going to be there for decades, and it's your family home, and there's going to be a community around there. But how do you deal and handle with neighbours when it comes to the investment side? Because I've always had the view of just trying to be equally fair as I can. I do find a lot of them can be excessively nosy, because it's their it's their own residence. Like, we had a woman that called us on the doctor's surgery that we did, and she was like, she called our landline every day for like 2 weeks, and coincidentally, I wasn't free to take the call, so it was just like take message in the office. But she got somehow thought that we were converting our doctor's surgery into like an asylum seeking accommodation, and the whole village was talking about it. And anyway, she called me, and my first answer was like, I don't actually have to tell you anything, really, because we don't have to get planning, blah, blah, blah. Coincidentally, it is privately let, and I did tell her that because I wanted her to stop ringing the team and chewing the team's ear off. So I was like, it's going to be let to young professionals. We fully vet them. We use a third party referencing company. And she was like, oh, thank God, okay. And it's just like, how do you tell the team, or how do you personally manage?
We have quite a funny one. So obviously we do a lot of content online, and it's easy to go on our website and find our info at email. So most days, or like at least most weeks, or on a regular basis, we get neighbours emailing that info at. A lot of the time, they're just asking for information and just like, oh, we noticed you're doing this thing next door. Just wanted to know what you're up to. But every now and then, you just get some mentalists, mate. Some people who just say some wild and like, I can't repeat one of the stories, but there was, no, I can't. But there's a really funny story of one of the neighbours who's a bit of a strange character, and Kane may have said something strange on the YouTube channel about that character, and they'd watched the YouTube video and came back and went, I can't believe you've said that about me, and went on this huge essay rant. And Matt every now and then picks him up, and he's just like, oh, by the way, got another sort of funny one here. And sometimes I'll go back if they've got reasonable concern. I'll go, no, look, don't worry, da 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 da. But to be honest, what we just do as a precedent is whenever we get on site, we'll just make sure to knock on the neighbour's door and just let them know what we're up to, and just show face, kind of get ahead of it. But that's only on the houses. On all of our bigger sites, we've just never had an issue with like immediate neighbours, but except for locals who might walk past as you're building. I don't know if I told you guys about Buzzers Bar, but because it's a 16-bed HMO with apartments, what happened when all this political stuff started heating up in the country is we had people all the time going past going, you sick fucks, you're putting in all these asylum seekers. They were going mental at all the builders. And Jeff was like, I don't know what to do. And he's just like stuck on site because these people just keep going past hurling abuse at all the lads. And there was then this guy on Facebook who put a video up, and it went mini viral in the local area. And people like hurling abuse at Buzzers Bar. These greedy southern developers have come in doing this and that. Da, 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 da. So I just went, all right, guys, stick up an England flag. Stick up an England flag. And when they come past, go, no, look, this is professional accommodation. We're here for this. We're here. We support the country. We support the cause. Da da da. This isn't like, it's almost like we were like, look, guys, look, we're one of us. It was almost like a white Mayday flag. You know what I mean? And since then, literally did that. And then straight after, we got people now going past going, we love it, beeping their horns and all that. So it's funny where we are culturally as a country to be like that symbolic flag just stopped us from getting. It was a lot of abuse.
Attacked.
Jeff was complaining all the time about it.
In petrol bombs thrown at your necks, mate. Jack, back to your question. Back to your question, mate, about neighbours. So there's two things. So we're doing, the neighbours get emotionally attached to what the hell they live there, you don't. And it's so with lofts, we deal with party walls all the time. If we're doing 80 lofts a year, there's effectively 160 neighbours that we have to deal with. Well, we don't. We try and avoid it and tell the person we're working for, they need to deal with the neighbour. But the strategy for them is to sort of drop them when they're doing a loft, let them know 4 or 5 weeks that plans are being done, because they need to get them on board to do the party walls. With our HMOs, we normally, I've got a little pack with like, what you should do is your finished photos that look really nice, the ones that we went around on the pod, I'd put them into a little A5 booklet, leave it in the car. And when you see them, as you're doing the plans and just getting everything ready, to show them what it's going to look like. Just go, look, we do professional lets sometimes we do HMOs, sometimes we do ASTs. This is the sort of finish we go for, and they'll be like, oh, that looks amazing and that looks great. And I think as long as you're improving the area, then they sort of they're okay about it. And then as long as they don't think you're sticking a load of asylum seekers in, I think that's the other big stress. But yeah, getting neighbours on board is quite difficult sometimes. And if you're dealing with so many people, different people, aren't there? Different types of people. Some of them are always going to be a Karen and a nosy neighbour and will cause you headaches. But
I think what would be most stressful, and Jack, you may have done a development like this, but we've all got a mate. I won't name names. He's a lovely bloke, but he used to do a lot of like airspace developments in London and dealing with like leasehold flat owners and stuff below. And to me, that must be the most headache, dealing with stakeholders like that. I just can't. That to me is way too much stress.
We've done a basement conversion with a block. It was actually our joint first deal that Ben and I did together, and then we've also had an airspace scheme. I would have said it is like the epitome of like neighbors it coming into a commercial thing is you're like mixing emotions with commercials, and that's really difficult. You know, it's like trying to get regimented with your missus. It's just like, you know, they just want to be heard, or, you know, be listened to, or, you know, be cared about, whereas you just want to fucking get from A to B. So it is quite difficult. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm avoiding airspace stuff anyway, because it's always been difficult to deliver because you're on top of a roof. I mean, Stuart's probably in a very strong position to be doing those schemes. Then you've got the politics of what's below, and now you've got high risk building gateways to get through. So whether it's an opportunity for someone to like double down and niche in that space, but if you're not in an, I don't think if you're very fluid or geared up to do airspace, I think it's fucking tough. Like the barrier for entry now is so high, because like there's to now, if you buy a flat in a building that is classified as high risk building, which is over 18 meters tall, one flat, if you just went and bought, you know, student buying a 1-bed flat, and you're doing a new application to like split it into a 2-bed and move the waste or whatever it may be, you've got to get freeholder consent. You have to submit through the building regulations, high risk building gateways for 1 unit internal changes. If you trigger building control. So anyone out there, anyone doing anything with any flats in any blocks, just 1 unit, let's say it's been developed 20 years.
What if you add an ensuite?
If the works you're doing trigger building control,
Like usually if you're adding like adding main waste.
so typically that's like structural changes, any structural changes, any like if you're adding an ensuite next door to a bathroom and you're just tapping into the existing system, I would argue you don't need building control. But if you then relocate that waste, for an example, building controls triggered, and then you have to go through high risk building gateways.
wow. So you don't want to be knocking through your lounge diner, sticking a small beam in.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
So many people will just do it under the radar, won't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're doing airspace developments as well, the biggest risk is the structure. The structure you're buying, you need to do so much due diligence to make sure it can take the loads. That's why I've sort of avoided it. Birthday boy. Sorry, my son's 2. Don't me say it quickly.
The back to the neighbours front. I was Ryan, you must love it, because like in the office we're obviously quite logical of how we communicate and deal with neighbours. Happy birthday, Hudson. He's
Happy
grown
birthday,
so
the boys
much.
are saying.
Happy birthday.
Do today.
Mate, look at his hair coming through,
He's
man.
waking up. Yeah, no, it wasn't born with much hair. It took a year and a half to get it going, but we're away
Is
now.
he gonna be blonde?
My little
Will he be
strawberry
blonde?
blonde, yeah. He's got a wife ginger on him. My gran and my auntie are both a little bit blondie ginger. It comes out from Dubai, really. It is blonde. It depends on what light you're in. We don't mind a little ginge. That's what we called him, my little ginger ninja. And
I
Amity's
was a
like,
little ginger when I was a baby.
yeah, I was a little bit as well. It turns blonde over a while, but
Well, we are brothers, Stuart.
a little Ed
so
Sheeran.
That's true. Ed Sheeran.
Anyway,
yeah, if he's as wealthy as Ed Sheeran, that'd be good.
That'd be nice.
right. Oh, and he's walking. Look,
Yeah, back to
we went to
neighbours.
get him walking before he's 2.
Oh, look at
There
that.
you go. Whee, away he goes.
Hey,
Down the pub. Lads go down the pub between 5 and 7 on Fridays.
5 and 7. That's it. We meet him down on a Friday.
Oi, Stu. So when we started this podcast though, which is like he must have been like a relatively newborn.
Yeah, we was born 2 years ago today, mate, and we're almost 2 years in. So
Yeah, obviously 2 years ago. 2 years ago today. That's
2 years
wild.
ago. Yeah, so he
But
must
we
have been he was a newborn, mate. Trust me, I remember
He'd
the
have been like
sleepless
5
nights. If you look
months.
back, like that, haggard.
Yeah, he'd have been like 4 months actually. He'd have been 4 because he had his little helmet on at the time. I remember when you first brought him on the pod. Bless mate. That's funny.
Bless him.
Sorry, Jack.
Yeah,
Go on.
I was just going to tell a funny story about neighbours because obviously in the office we're quite diplomatic and builders just aren't. They just don't give an absolute. And I've got tons of stories of like where I get to site and then the builder's told me about something and I'm like, why did you have to go and say that? That is just ruffling them up the wrong way. But we had a project where it's kind of on an estate of houses that were built in like the 60s. Coincidentally, apparently my granddad was actually part of the build. I think he was like project manager or something back then. But yeah, so it's part of a big estate, and on that estate, because it's like almost like semi-private estate, there was like a spokesperson executor of the estate who coincidentally was our direct neighbour on the project we were working on. And apparently she came round and was chatting to a labourer doing the patio. And she was like, can you keep the noise down or something? And he was just like, yeah, righto. And just completely ignoring her and not really caring. And then apparently she went, well, I'll have you know, I am the executor of the estate. And he went, oh, well done. Really well done. Just completely sarcastically.
Well done. Good for you. Mate, we had one with like Kane went down to site once. So we had a planning enforcement officer was there who we've now actually won round after this story. He's on our side now and he's very good with us. But we built an extension. This is going back like 2 and a bit years ago. And we just knocked up this extension and stuck in a retrospective planning application. And the planning inspector, the enforcement officer came down whilst Kane wasn't on site and the lads are on site knocking up the footings and getting this extension ready to be built. Bricks are on site, and the enforcement officer goes, "Stop the work! Stop what you're doing, boys! This is not a lawful development." And he's like going at him. So one of the boys calls Kane and goes, "Oh mate, like we're not allowed to build this. Apparently it's unlawful." And da 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 da. So Kane's like, "I'm coming down now." And he like gets down there, yeah, and he stands next to this planning enforcement officer, and the boys are like just sat there, like just sitting around. And Kane goes, "What the fuck are you all doing? Like, what the fuck are you all doing?" And the enforcement officer stood right next to him, and they're like, "He told us we can't build it." And he's like, "Who fucking pays your wages? Get it built, boys." And he's just going at him. And this enforcement officer just stood there like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And so we just knocked up the extension. We ended up getting it through and it wasn't an issue, but I was just like, that's one way to start a relationship with a council, mate. But he's on our side now. He's in our good books. But yeah, builders dealing with,
Was it lawful development or was it a full planning?
I think it was like a 25 square meter extension that we were going in for retrospective planning on, just getting it knocked up. And obviously they hadn't seen any application yet. So the neighbours complained and the enforcement officer came down and yeah, Michael Conyard, he loves us now though. So it's all good. But yeah, builders dealing with stakeholders. It's not the best. Site manager, okay. But when the lads chat with neighbours, like they could just say anything. It's just like, it's just not, it's too risky. Can we talk about?
I got one more funny story. When I quit my office job and the first house flip that I ever did, I kind of JV'd with a family friend who was 55 years old. I knew bits and bobs about building, but he was kind of like my mentor / site trainer. So we bought this bungalow on this road, and at the end of the road was this painter decorator who I said to Matt when we started the job, I was like, is he going to do the paint and decorating? And he went, no, he's too expensive and he's a bit of a see you next Tuesday. And I just took it on face value and I was like, well, you know. Anyway, it was a private road, 10 houses down the side, and I've rocked up and I was basically started as labourer. So I was running around doing bits, grabbing bits and bobs for everyone. And he came down to site very early on and he said, whose car is that? And I was like, what car is it? And he was like, a blue one. And I was like, oh, that's mine. And he was like, well, go and move it, you idiot. So I was like, geez, that's a bit forward and aggressive, isn't it? But he thought that I was just 120 quid labourer and didn't think anything of it. But actually, in reality, just because I was doing a job that was the 120, I was also doing other things, and he wasn't there every day to see it. And And anyway,
He didn't know who you were, mate. He didn't know who you
that
were.
sort of set the stall out. But he didn't know I owned half of the site, and I was going to be the one that profited from half of the value of what we're doing. It's not a little job. It was like a 900k house that we're finishing and selling. So anyway, come towards the end of the job, it was coming into like a wintry period, and we had a I think like a 6-ton digger down there, and he had then progressively got to know who I was because we were on site 6 months, and he came in on site and he started getting nicer and nicer and nicer, knowing that I wasn't just someone running around every day and then I'd off to another job. And he came up the road and he said, "All right, Jack, how are you doing today, mate?" And I was like, "Oh, he's being nice today." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, we got a bit of flooding down our road. I wondered if you could track the digger down and just pull a bit of the verge out to let the water run into the field." And I went, "Do you remember how you spoke to me in my first week?" And he went, "No, what happened?" And I was like, "Well, I parked my car well out of the way of everyone, actually kind of outside your house, but also the neighbour's house. And you came in there effing and blinding, and you had no respect when you thought I was a labourer. And now all of a sudden you want a favour off me. You're licking my ass out." And he went, "Oh," and I was like, "You can go f yourself and get." I said, "There's a shovel there. Go and dig it yourself." And and that was brewing for like 7 months.
You unleashed it.
Yeah. And he just went, "Oh, right," and then walked off.
Oh, lovely,
Fucking
charming.
brilliant, mate. That is karma. That is karma.
Yeah.
Karma comes back around, baby. All right, budget.
But what did annoy me before you go on that is you've got to respect everyone, no matter who anyone is on site. They, if it's the local mayor or whether it's a labourer, always offer people the same respect at the outset because you never know who they are actually going to be.
It's true,
Definitely,
baby.
mate.
It's true.
Labour.
Except enforcement officers. Yes. So budget. What do we think's going to happen? Because by the time this gets released, where are we now? 14th of November on the day of recording. So in 10 days, 24, we're going to be very close to budget release by the time this comes out. So what do we think? This is going to be purely speculative for all of our listeners, but what do we think the budget will entail? Obviously, it's looking like Reeves is going to have to raise taxes unless she does the sensible thing. It cuts regulation, which costs nothing and stops the immigrants coming in on the border and all that kind of stuff. But they're not going to do that, are they? So they're going to try and find more revenue. Where do you think they're going to do it? Do you think they'll break their manifesto, which, partially done already anyway? What do you think, boys? Pie in the sky.
Reluctantly, I think they're going to do absolutely fucking nothing. I think all this hot air, I think they're going to do very, very small changes, not change much. That's what the word is on the street of the people I'm talking to, is that actually they've sort of gone full circle. They've planted all this doubt and fear, and they're actually not going to do an awful lot because it's just so volatile at the moment.
How do they raise revenue, though? Because if they don't raise revenue, they're not going to stabilize the bond markets, and then BOE is going to have an issue, and then she's going to be gone.
I don't know. All I know is that Carla Holmes have just laid off all their guys until the end of March.
Wow.
Which is not good. Yeah, everyone, they're just not selling anything, and all their trades. A good friend of mine does a lot of work for them. They've told everyone, all their live sites, they've laid everyone off to end of March. So I think that's just going to filter through to government, and I think they're going to have to just borrow more money. Basically, it's just they're going to have to print more money. There's just no other way out of it. But if they break their manifesto and try and raise income tax, I think it's going to be fucking up.
I think what they'll do, mate, and I was speaking with Dad about this yesterday. Income taxes, they can't go after NI. They just can't go after corp tax, but they can't go after income tax on the workers. But what they can try and do is re-kilter the scales and go after higher earners, i.e., 50 grand or more. I reckon they'll raise income tax. I think it's the only thing they can go for.
I think that's the wrong move. They've got to do something with, like, a lot of their sentiment is trying to take some value out of the baby boomers, which is the wealthiest generation, the wealthiest generation currently. And I feel that the SME businesses, the medium-sized businesses, the large businesses, anyone growing and getting onto the property ladder and trying to afford a home is getting hit by any income or national insurance changes. Because realistically, from a national insurance perspective, you change national insurance costs and it impacts the business for short term, but then it impacts salaries long term. So
they've already played that card, haven't they?
Yeah, so I think they need to play more on potentially pensions and inheritance. Well, not inherit. I'll rephrase that. Not necessarily inheritance. Obviously, the transition that they were trying to do to remediate stamp duty to being sellers' costs, I think, is trying to move that wealth and tax that wealth in those generations, because they can't really like, if you look at income growth, it's not that strong. So they just keep tackling it, and it's kind of like the you know they it's not a huge driving force of, obviously there's a lot of workers in the UK. I mean, unemployment's obviously just gone up to 5%, but 95% of the population is working and contributing to that. But there's still more wealth in the people that aren't working and sapping the value out of the economy.
But there's another demographic which Dorian Payne. Hello.
Howdy ho!
Howdy, we've just started the section on speculative guessing on what we think is going to happen with Rachel Reeves' budget, mate. Because when this episode comes out, it will be a couple days before the release, so it's we're playing guessing games, and we'll just see what happens. But just to your point, Jack, I think if they're going to go after anything that can have like a double net benefit, it's got to be the welfare budget, because the welfare in this country is insane. So just speaking to non-workers from the topper end of the spectrum, i.e. the elderly, looking at the other end where we've got young people fully capable to work, and ultimately they can make more money on benefits than they can as minimum wage. There's such a distorted view there that but are Labour going to go after? Are Labour going to go after that? But they've got to do something, and where they have to try and retain growth, because they know that if they do something that affects growth, and growth's basically nothing right now, then they're out, like they're done, because the bond market just won't sustain it. So I feel like the hand will be forced on the welfare budget. But
the elderly don't have a choice to work because they're elderly, right? They're not physically capable in most chance. The welfare have a choice, and they're picking not to. In most instances, obviously, there's anomalies in that catchment. Single mums or whatever it may be, where they've got to care for their kids. But there is a lot of laziness in the youth in the welfare bracket. And if you remove that, do they then just make ends meet in the new normal, or do they go, "Fuck it, we've got to go back to work"? I just don't see them going back to work, personally.
But the welfare, I mean, the people on benefits is their core voting base. I just don't think they can do that. I don't think they can go after that money, because it just hurt the party too much longer term.
I mean, that statement is just ridiculous. We're not
That's
ruffling
politics.
feathers because
Politics
of
is what
votes. Like, that
Yeah.
is
well, that's been politics for the last 20 years,
fake
isn't it? And
news.
since Blair, right the way through Corbyn, all the way up to, I mean, and the Tories are just as bad. It's just what affects the voters. It's so boring now, isn't it? It's just like, guys, can we just fix the country and like just take your antics, go be an actor? You can have loads of fun over there jousting each other, but we just need some sensibility. Dorian,
No one would watch any acting if politicians were actors.
exactly. They'd
They
all be
would
out of a
be
job.
horrific. What job do you think they would be good at if they weren't in politics?
I like what you said.
Ticket machine people.
What did you,
The
yeah,
parking enforcement.
yeah. Or Tesco's manager. What did you say? Keir
Yeah,
Starmer.
Asda store manager.
Yeah, as the store manager.
Keir
Yeah,
Starmer's
something like that,
Asda store
mate.
manager. True story.
What do you think, Dorian? Just roping you into the poddy. What do you reckon? Budget, speculative lens on. What do you think they'll do?
Yeah, apologies, guys. My internet isn't the best this morning, so I'm hearing you, but I feel like I'm getting the news when the podcast is probably coming out. That's where sometimes it feels like. But I suppose to answer, I caught glimpses of that. The welfare they did try to reduce, right? I think by 5 billion, but they got that was a few months back. But their own party overturned it. So Keir Starmer, as Prime Minister, doesn't have the power to bring in cuts by himself, and he did try to save 5 billion from the welfare, but the backbenchers stopped him. He couldn't get it through his own majority party, which says it all, really, that we have a prime minister, but they're not really they're puppets from bigger forces.
which I don't think is a bad thing. It makes lack of rash decisions, but it also builds.
I know. I think executive powers. I think it's so good.
Well, it depends. It's like the executive powers are great if it's the right person making the decisions, but if it's the wrong person
Yes.
making decisions, it's equally worse. So it's kind of like
that's true.
hedging your bets.
Yeah, but at least as a voter, you've voted
Yeah,
in that
unelected.
person. Yeah, it's the
Unelected
unelected
civil.
who
Yeah, but
then-
Unelected
how many times, in actual fact, look at Trump for an example. A lot of Americans have not voted for him because they think he's going to be the best president in the world. A lot of them have voted for him because there's no other option, and he's the best of the bunch, but he's still not ideal. So when you say you voted that person in, sometimes it's not your A player. It's someone that's just better than everyone else.
When you say that, though, I know you've said that, but if he won the electoral vote, he won the college vote, he won the Senate, he won everything. So he did landslide win, which would say more than he was the best of a bad bunch. I think Trump is an enigma when it comes to political leaders. I think people went, "Please fix us." I think Trump was voted as a "Please fix us."
I still don't think the majority of the US feel that. It's like the story of if you ask a fish to climb a tree. Like if you there's where was I going with that?
That's a good one. That
It's like
I mean, technically, the fishes can climb trees, especially when the trees are underwater.
getting deep now,
intellect
mate.
oozing
Like Goldman
oozing
Sachs
intellect.
calls.
No, but where I was getting is like if with a bunch of politicians, if you don't, obviously one big problem is you have conflicting views, right? You have left wing, right wing. I think the right wing's now quite centered because we're so movie lefty. But so there's always going to be a disagreement of what is important, right? But equally, that voting that person in is tiered in those parties. I think with Trump, they just wanted some action and someone's come in and do it. But I would have said that a lot of them begrudgingly felt that he probably wasn't the right person.
I'd say maybe at this, but if he got,
He's
if he
proven
got that
himself
majority,
now. I think he's proven himself now to the slightly. Obviously, the major concerns with was his character, not his knowledge and execution. Because he didn't have the best. I mean, he had sexual allegations all flying around and all sorts.
Yeah, but let's remember, like, look what's just come out of the BBC. Like, the media apparatus was so against Trump. The left were doing all kinds of dodgy shit, and he still won the majority of the Senate and the electoral vote. So I do think there was a huge force, and I can see it here, mate. Me and my mates, yeah, we joke about it quite a lot. And we just say, I want Trump to just come take over this country now. Just come because it's like there's no hope left in British politics. It's like, Trump, can you just come here and just sort out this Quango stupid shit and just like
Quango.
fix us? And I love that he's suing the BBC and
No, I just don't think even if you brought Trump into the UK, the system is set up against.
yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah.
can't do it without complete overhaul of the system. Like he wouldn't be able to act the way, or he could act the way he was, but he wouldn't be able to get his own decisions out. So imagine that. You know, he comes over and backbenches.
I mean, it's not going to happen because he's cracking on and getting old now. But if it were to ever happen, I reckon he would buy the UK and then sort us all out.
which is not out of the question, by the way. If we do go bankrupt, which is not, it's not looking like that's an impossibility. If we do go bankrupt, then UK kind of becomes up for grabs inadvertently through debt mechanisms. Like they will be controlled by the US because the US is the only one that will take us on and bail us out, and in which case we'll be controlled defunctly by US politics. That's kind of the trend line. And there's a bit of a conspiracy about this being a plan from the US all along to help like destroy UK politics and sovereignty so they could like absorb us. And that's going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but could be possible. You
I
never.
don't think we need a conspiracy, mate. I think it's just happening organically. I mean, the UK is it's so disappointing in the way that it's all going. And you're right, the Quangos, the unelected bureaucrats, the unelected civil servants who make all the decisions ahead of the politicians who are the puppeteers, means that we're fighting a losing battle. There's just no way of getting around it unless the whole infrastructure changes. You've got to let people make the decision. And then how do you remove power and greed away from the right decision? because it's a human instinct, is that if you're in that sort of power, you're going to do things to benefit you, your buddies, your mates, your family. It's just whatever level you're in. And that's the problem. This is just a knock-on effect of like 50, 60 years of these decisions being made, especially when you can print the one thing we all trade for, which is always going back to Bitcoin. I mean, I can't see any other way out. And like Ryan says, looking
We
from a
need sound
different
money.
perspective, from a power, it's sound money. The whole thing is
We
down
need
to
sound
money, which equals greed and power. And if you can remove the way someone can print it, or any government, corporation, think tank, quangos can make decisions that affects them, you need to have a level playing field globally, and that's exactly where Bitcoin comes in. It's painful to watch, but also highly entertaining.
Back onto the BBC and their cutting and editing of of the Trump video. I was listening to showing my age now. I think it was BBC Radio 4, and an interviewer was chatting to, basically trying to have a bit of a debate about it. And the woman that worked at the BBC was like, well, if you run a media news company for decades, you're bound to make mistakes. And I was like, well, if you tell the truth, there isn't mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. It's not a mistake to.
And I think that's good. I think we needed that. Like, BBC isn't necessarily as straight-laced as we all thought, which I think kind of helped trying to turn. Like, we kind of need a bit of breakages in all areas for everyone to go, right, let's get on, turn the ship around.
Yeah.
Boys, as much as I love you, I missed you so much. I'll see you next week, but I've got to go and open some presents because my 2-year-old's getting ready to go.
Happy
Have a good
birthday,
weekend,
Hudson.
lads. I'll see you next week.
Safe one, mate. So just going back to the budget though, in terms of what can they do, how can that affect us guys, property business owners, investors? Are they going to come for council tax? I know they're looking at new bandings to make a certain.
I think they've laid down all the potential tax rises, and I think we'll see a slurry of stealth taxes for sure, like freezing the bands as usual. So even though I don't think they'll raise income tax, which is all over the news, but technically freezing the personal allowance bands does raise income tax. So, but they'll be able to slip that one through again and raise billions on the back of it, which will affect the lowest earners more. But I think they will freeze the personal allowances probably across income tax and inheritance tax, the nil rate band and stuff. And I think that there'll be lots of like stealth taxes everywhere where they feel like people wouldn't feel it, if that makes sense. They're not actually physically. It feels like they're not paying it. It's hard to explain, but so I think there'll be tons of stealth taxes to try to make up the majority, and then I think, as you say, Labour's thing is all about trying to see if they can tax the wealthy, isn't it? So I don't know exactly what else they can do, but
they'll have to fly over to Dubai and see what they can salvage back.
I think, do you reckon they'd be targeting in bringing a tax in on pensions? And also, I know they were saying about squaring up the national insurance extra costs, so it's like reflected across all different entities and all different businesses, because at the moment, like, partnerships are outside of it, for example, but they're going to bring them into it as well. Things like that.
Can we go through the three big ones and just see what we all think? There's VAT, NI, and income tax, right? The three big ones where, a marginal push and a decimal point can be billions to the exchequer. Which of those do you think they'll touch VAT? Do either of you think they'll touch that?
I think the biggest thing they would do is drop the threshold, but I don't think they'll raise the rate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree, but I mean, I agree they would, but that would be, with inflation the way it's been, that would be dangerous politically. National insurance, do you think they'll touch that again?
I think they'll stand fast on NI.
I don't think they'll raise NI, but I think they'll try to drag others that are outside of it at the moment into it.
Then income tax, which I know is getting a lot of heat at the moment, but I think for good reason, because it seems the only likely one where they'll probably go for the 50 grand or higher earners. So they're not affecting the working people, or they're affecting the well-off, the rich.
Yeah, I think it will be I mean, the problem with income tax is it's a little bit of a trap, in the sense that typically business owners and entrepreneurs don't actually typically pay a lot of tax per annum, other than corporation tax.
There's a lot of employees on 50 grand or more, though, right?
Exactly. But yeah, employed people like traders, bankers, lawyers, professionals in the city, they're getting taxed through the nose. And I do think they'll probably hit that end of the market more. I mean, to be fair, they should restructure business ownership taxation because, you know,
No, they shouldn't. No,
I
they
know
shouldn't.
that I'm not saying I'd like that because that directly impacts probably the most out of all of it, but that is it's just
No, but I think it's for good measure, though, because the point is, if you own a business and you've got this risk on and you're bringing jobs, the idea is that what you don't keep, you reinvest to steroid growth, which creates more jobs and more inadvertent taxes as a
it
second.
is delayed gratification though, right?
Do you know
They've
what I
only
mean?
got a short term. You know, imagine if I said to you, "Don't give me a tenner today. Give me 40 in 10 years." I then haven't got that tenner to spend on my own stuff. It's kind of like,
Yeah, politically, I see what you're saying. I just mean in the greater good, for the greater good, for business owners, it makes sense for them to be able to control more of what they can do with their take and how they want to treat their extraction from the business, so that they can reinvest more into more growth, which creates more jobs and NI and taxes. And do you know what I mean? It's that the growth side is the big thing.
yeah. I mean, I'm a massive believer of, you know, rather than giving a man a fish, teach a man how to fish, and you know everything will prosper. You know, I think we all are massive believers of supporting growth across all sectors and
What
all
do you
businesses.
do? You think that's something Labour are going to do? Do you think they're going to do anything in their budget that is going to inspire more growth in the country?
I think they have taken housing very seriously, which selfishly in our linear market, I do think will help SME developers and national home builders actually to, when I say help, I think that back 15 years ago, the SME was delivering 40% of the stock in the housing market. Now it's down to 10%. So I don't think we're ever going to get back to the 40%. So it's not like we're getting a handout and now it's super easy to be a developer. I think it's harder than it's ever been. And I heard a stat the other day that 50% of developers will go bust in the Labour term, which is crazy.
And you can see why. You can see why.
100%. I mean, the developers have a high rate of going under anyway. I think it's only 20% of development companies go past the year of 8. So if you actually work that out as a ratio, it's...
Yeah, I agree. I think development, I think you said it before, Jack, as well, is when you're in the sector and the intangible market forces move against you faster than you can react. That's the disadvantage you have in this sector. So
Explain that, D, just for listeners who maybe aren't aware of what you mean by intangible.
to be a developer, depending on which way you do it, let's just keep it simple. If I want to buy a site with planning permission, deal with all the pre-commencement consent, discharging, regulatory stuff, blah, blah, blah. Raise finance, PG on it, build it, incur more debt along the way, eventually finish it. That process could take 18 months. That's with something with planning. Something without planning could take 3+ years. Then you've got to sell it. So you're making decisions on today, and then within 18 months, and sometimes within a matter of a week, market can go strong. 1 minute we're not in a black hole. Next minute, the news articles put out there from the Treasury, we've got a £30 billion black hole. We might be raising taxes, and then everyone just pulls their feet back from buying, which then means that you can't sell your properties that you've just built, incurred all the debt on, all the costs are done, you've done a good job on it, no one's buying. The only ones who are buying are in a bit more of a strength from a negotiation point of view. They're trying to chip your price. The debt, though, is still racking up, and you're still getting emails from the lender saying, when are we getting our money back? If you don't pay it back by this date, you're going into default. So we're now going to double the interest rate, double the fees. And you could do everything right, and unfortunately the market's moved against you, and you might not be able to finish it, and you might not be able to refinance it, and you might just that's it. basically. It all comes down to basic serviceability at the end of the day. That's what it all comes back down to. Can you repay the debt? Can you service the debt? Can you get agreed facilities? And if you can, and I've been in this boat literally firsthand, and I also know developers that have done, been in that boat, and one of the companies I modeled my business off, Countryside, which was one of the largest partnerships house building company of its time before it was bought out by taken over from Vistry Group, and it was founded by Mr. Cherry. When they traded through the financial crash, basically that company, even though it was massive, nearly went bust, and Lloyd's banking group actually had to come in and take control of the company. They didn't. That one particularly didn't go under because Lloyd's chose not to. But if Lloyd's wanted to, if Lloyd's chose to, could have sent it under. But they came in and took control, like majority control. So that's just how. Sometimes it doesn't matter how big you are. It's a brutal sector.
Do you think that's mostly for those who are selling? What about those retaining, who are just building to keep assets, whether that's commercial or resi?
Well, in the south, you can't retain.
Unless you got enough wedge.
Subject to finance costs. There's areas that we operate, Marlow, Colney Hatch Lane, Muswell Hill, the two sites that we've got in delivery at the moment. If we refinance those, we'll have to. We depending on where the market sits on a valuation perspective, you've got to have a 25% percentage on GDV after finance costs, which is a huge margin, and almost we have delivered those schemes, but consistently across the board you wouldn't. So you're going to have to put money in to refinance it, and then the income will not service the mortgage. So you're losing money on an asset every month in cash. Capital appreciation might, on a balance sheet, tally that away, but on a cash on cash position, which typically is a problem of insolvencies and businesses getting into a position of trouble, is your cash on cash return doesn't stack up. So then developing and operating in areas like the north where you can rent it out is more stable. Well, we've got sites in Oxfordshire which do service the mortgage costs, so on and so forth. But then down the south, you get paid better value for development because your pound per square foot values are higher on the open market. So it's just, like Dorian said, there's no other easy way to say it than if you compared it to a different business model, like another business model, forgetting construction for 1 second, just thinking about buying a site, developing it and selling it or holding it, the amount of risks that are entailed in that are huge.
Do you think there'll be an interesting balancing that happens over the next, say, 5 years, if there is a, likely to be more difficulty in the market, regardless of who comes to power and who tries to inspire growth? We're just in that place as a country with debt and lack of growth and activity and things like that. Do you think there'll be a rebalancing between the north and south? Do you think we'll see a lot more investment and activity moving to the northeast, which will kind of rebalance the northern southern scales a little bit? Do you think we could see an expedition, if that's a word, of that disparity between the two?
I think it's already started.
It has, yeah, it has.
Manchester and Birmingham and Liverpool, I think, are in not specific. I'd have to look up the stats, but I think all three of them are in the highest capital growth areas
And Leeds
in the last 5-10 years. BBC made a big move and moved all of their operations from White City to be based in Manchester. They've still got presence in West London, but a lot of other companies have done it too. I think that balancing has already started, but London's not 100 years old, and it's not 100 years old in the world. So I don't think London will ever lose its true value. There's talks about putting in another runway at Heathrow. I think there's always going to be a really strong pull to London. I think as cities get better connected, that will even support more growth of Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, the other areas that we're discussing. I do think some areas have ceiling values, like Liverpool or whatever it may be. I think it has a growth period where people go there because it's cheap, and then it's not cheap anymore. So you kind of need to that does equalize itself out. But there's hubs which will always be strong. And I believe they're sort of large population central hubs that can get beyond that tier where, growth of some areas is you start to then get secondary high streets improving and then first street high street improving, and then the retail improves in that place, and then it pulls more economy, value, classes, whatever it may be. But that's also natural with population growth. We are a growing population. I know that at the moment we're not as spunky as we were in child reproduction, but we were always a growing population, which means every area needs to grow.
Well, I like what I don't know if have you seen, just speaking to your spunky comment. I think it's either Poland or I forgot the name of it. The other European country where the guy's an absolute G, and they're all for build the family back, zero tolerant immigration, etc., and they are implementing tax cuts for those that have kids. So if you're a couple and you want to have kid, you get tax relief on your income, and if you want to have two, you get more. If you want to have three, you get more. So the idea to inspire more growth of the native population is to incentivize them through tax cuts.
In the US, you get $1,000 in the baby's bank account.
That's $1,000 though, but imagine tax relief, like as in you just pay less taxes.
Hungary and Poland.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Hungry for Poland. But do you think that's good? Do you think we should do that here? Like inspire British people to have more kids rather than import them?
I mean, we do have that. The more kids you have, the more benefits you get.
Yeah, that's different though. We want to inspire the working people to have more kids. Wild. It is wild. You can make a lot of money on benefits. Me.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally, in the current process of my life of looking to grow a family more, that would be nice. I had to pay for the birth of my baby because the mother wasn't English.
Oh yeah, mad.
Jack's already given a nickname for his child. It's called Few Grand.
Yeah, more than that, mate.
Few Grand. Come over here.
You fall off a chair if you actually worked out what the NHS costs in cash money. Painful.
Then what do you think then, just back to the budget, just directly on property, do you think they'll do anything towards properties owning companies and personal names? And do you think they'll do anything to try and attack the taxes there, or
they're going to continue to muller personal ownership in property? That's that they are. I actually asked a Labour politician. I said, is the reason that you are taxing private landlordship to move it into the larger outfits, more professional, institutional? And they said no comment. And I said, that speaks in volume. That to me is better than you answering and saying no or yes, because it is yes. So I think they'll continue to murder, unfortunately, people that privately own properties in their personal name, which I think is really wrong in some capacity, because their argument is they want better professional housing and they want the property to be better cared for. And I do agree that there is a stigma or a reputation for privately owned landlords. Don't reinvest capital into those assets and make them, whether it's compliant or good living accommodation. But there's probably quite a lot that are good landlords and are good people that are supporting communities.
I'm in agreement with you, Jack. Owning a property in a company does not make you professional. Like, that is not how you go from unprofessional to professional. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but equally, they're moving the money from they're in that transaction for private ownership to sell a property and put it back into the market. They're taxing that, right? So they're getting money out of the baby boomers, and they're recirculating real estate into whatever generation wants to take that on, whether it's a company, first time buyer, downsizer, whatever it may be. Which is kind of the sentiment behind that is obvious. But I think that they could have monitored that rental model better than just absolutely pillaging them with tax. So I think they're going to do more of that and lean into that more. And they're trying to get to, I think the stat is something like 90% of this, that don't hold me to this, but it's roughly speaking, just to drive the conversation. I think it's something like over 90% of the properties in the UK that are investment properties, so buy-to-lets, rental properties, are owned by people that own one or two or less properties. So 2 or less, basically. So not these big institutions that own thousands and thousands and thousands like you would in the US. There's a lot of enterprising landlords out there that are now getting absolutely pillaged with tax. And it's so high. It doesn't make sense at all. There's no way around it. Anyone that owns a personal property that is renting it out is getting absolutely taxed to the hill, especially on...
It's the example of the state going after people's property rights. That's literally what it is. It's the state going, we're going to take that off you now. We're going to force your hand to do something different, which is exactly why America was founded the kind of way it was, because that's what they were sick of way back when they wanted to create the free world, because of what Europe did to people's property rights and people's sovereignty. And we're literally seeing it now from the state, albeit people like us, commercially minded, enterprising individuals, have found ways to incorporate and work around this stuff to our advantage, as you would. But it's the BlackRocks, the Blackstones, the Granger Groups, the big PLCs who are ultimately going to benefit from these changes. And it does make you think, who are they really doing it for? Are they doing it to benefit the British people, or these huge universal hedge funds who are going to come in and buy up all of our properties and then rent them back to us? And imagine that as a tenant, then you're going to be
and pay
calling
tax
for
in another in
another
another
country, extracting wealth from our country. So we're already selling off the country to the United States. We're selling off our houses, our sovereignty. I do think it's massively concerning, because it's not worked in the US. Like the BlackRocks and that owning properties in the US, it's not worked well. It's not, and people don't like it. So I can't see it working here, but it's gonna.
But the difference between the US is the free market can build. It's a lot easier to build 10 houses in the US
True,
than it is
yeah.
here.
That's a big point. That's a big point. Yeah, sheer just land mass and state diversity means that you can get more done. Whereas here you're really landlocked and struggle. So
I do think Labour will be active on trying to improve planning applications. I think they might reduce things like BNG, and I think they're moving the right pieces, and they have put planning at front and centre as the bottleneck. So I do think they are focusing some relevant attention on planning, extra resource or extra funding or whatever it may be, or limiting some of the things that we're scrutinised on. I do think will get marginally better. But again, it's come from such a bad place. It's kind of like, would you rather be stabbed 9 times or 6 times? It's kind of like, it's not great, but it's just better than it was.
you're more likely to live. Yeah. I mean, what do you think then, as a last comment? I don't know, out of 10, right? How do you think the one being the budget is going to be really, really, really bad, 10 being the budget is going to be absolutely fine, it's not much to worry about, and it would be business as usual pretty much?
We're not allowed any 5s either.
No 5s. No sitting on the fence. Where do you think it lands?
I think it's going to be a solid 4. I think it's going to be quite a lot of shake, because they've. What's the point in them building all of this uproar and then they're not actually benefiting from the concerns that they've fed into the market? But I do think selfishly from a planning perspective, it's going to get marginally better. But I don't think it's going to be great generally for business owners in the UK. So I'm going to go maybe a 3 or a 4. But obviously that we're if inflation and unemployment wasn't on the as bad as it was, they can normally underwrite lack of confidence with lower cost of debt, so they could lower base rate to give a bit more confidence to balance that. But we're not really in a position to do that because we're getting torn in 2 areas.
Yeah. D.
So 4.9. No, I'm joking. I think as already been discussed, it's gonna be on in that first half, i.e., it's gonna be a budget filled with taxes rather than growth. To be honest with you, that is the reality of it. I haven't seen any incentives for growth, any incentives for investment on a material scale that would incite billions to come to the country to try to grow the GDP. They're trying to tax their way through deficits, and so it's going to be a negative budget by far. So, but obviously, from my point of view, I'm not just gonna crack on, do what I do, and push through, and just whilst the taxes are high, just try to reinvest everything so I don't have to pay a lot of taxes. But I do have to go because I have to do the school run. And if I don't, then my household is going to be in the lower 4 as well.
Number, though. We need number first.
3.
3. Okay. I tend to agree with both of you. I don't, same ballpark. I don't think it's going to be catastrophic. I think it's going to move the needle in a slightly worse direction. But ultimately, we know it's going there anyway. So just tighten the belts, boys and girls, and crack on.
Apparently, it's 16,500 millionaires that the UK has lost this year.
Crazy, mate. But I kind of like that because the voting with the feet, it forces things to change. But big love, D. See you next week, mate. And big love to all of our viewers and listeners. Thank you very much. Hopefully, been somewhat of an interesting episode. Seeing Stu's new gaff.
We are absolutely sailing through the ticket sales for the event on the 9th of January. So if anyone would like to come along to that, also got a load of sponsors lined up. It's going to be good fun. It's going to be really good fun.
Yeah, click the link in the description on YouTube or go to our Instagram bio and click that link and you can go get tickets. If you come as a group, you get discounts and it's going to be a great fun day. So come along. And we got Black Tie tomorrow, Property Investor Awards. Jack's hosting. It's going to be a load of fun as well. Looking forward to that, mate. And thank you, everyone who's watched. See you next week.
Later. Bye.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay